There are demons, and then there are the dead who refuse to stay dead. In Jewish mysticism, there's a word for a soul that should have moved on, but didn't. A spirit so twisted by guilt, betrayal, or most of the time, rage, that it claws its way back into the world of the living. They do not possess you, they cling to you. They slip into the cracks of grief, trauma, and loneliness, and whisper until your own thoughts are no longer your own. Let me in. I was here first. It does not want your soul. It wants your life. Tonight, we open the sealed case files of real possessions, forbidden exorcisms, and the spirits that never found peace. I'm your host, Michael, and this is Project Black Garden, a Monsters and Myths podcast. Season 3, The Lotus Files. File number 319. The Dybbuk. Some ghosts don't haunt houses. They haunt people. Shall we begin? The Dybbuk, a soul that refuses to be forgotten. What is a Dybbuk? A Dybbuk, from the Hebrew meaning to cling, is not a demon. It is a human soul, a spirit of someone who lived a wicked, traumatized, or deeply sinful life and was denied entry into the afterlife. Unable to move on, it clings to the living to escape eternal punishment. Where demons invade, Dybbuks attach. They don't just possess, they hide inside someone's soul. Their origins comes from Kabbalistic Jewish folklore, especially in Eastern Europe, dated back to the 1500s. In this belief system, when someone dies, their soul is judged. The righteous go to peace. The wicked are purified through suffering. But some souls refuse judgment. Those become Dybbuks. They slip back into the world through cracks in reality. Funerals, graveyards, moments of grief, newborns or emotionally broken people. A Dybbuk always enters through trauma. How a Dybbuk possesses someone. Unlike movie demons, they do not take control instantly. They do not announce themselves, and they do not appear monstrous at first. They slowly blend into the victim's personality. It begins with sudden depression, hearing whispers, memory lapses, speaking in unfamiliar languages, changes in voice, personality fractures. The Dybbuk demon feeds on guilt, grief, loneliness, and religious doubt. Eventually, the soul of the host weakens, and then the Dybbuk pushes forward. At full possession, the victim may speak with two voices, no secrets they shouldn't, reveal the Dybbuk's past crimes, and show knowledge of the dead. Because it is the dead. The Dybbuk doesn't just want a body, it wants to escape divine judgment, to continue living, to feel, to commit sins again. Many Dybbuks were murderers, abusers, betrayers, criminals, and heretics. The body they eventually steal becomes a second life. Exorcising the Dybbuk, this is where the legend becomes terrifyingly specific. A Dybbuk cannot be removed by prayer alone. A proper exorcism requires a rabbi trained in Kabbalah, a minyan, 10 holy men, official candles, a ram's horn, sacred names of God, psalms, threats of divine punishment. The Dybbuk is forced to identify itself, confess its sins, and state its name. Then it is finally driven out, sometimes through the victim's mouth, sometimes through blood, sometimes through screams so violent they echo in multiple voices. If it escapes before being judged, it can attach again. Jewish historical records contain dozens of Dybbuk possessions cases between 1600s and the 1800s. Victims were often young women, grieving widows, survivors of trauma, and religious converts. Some were documented in court transcripts describing levitation, superhuman strength, foreign languages, knowing hidden crimes. These were not folk stories. They were court records. In modern times, the Dybbuk legend returned through the infamous Dybbuk box, a sealed wine cabinet said to contain a trapped Dybbuk spirit. Owners reported nightmares, illness, hallucinations, deaths, fires, shadow figures. Most museums refused to store one. Why Dybbuks are more terrifying than demons? Well, because demons are outsiders. Dybbuks were once human. They have regrets, rage, memories, desire, shame, love twisted into obsession. They don't want to destroy the world. They want to keep living. And they'll steal a soul to do it. There are a handful of famous Dybbuk attacks, such as Case 1, The Bride of Minsk, 1708. Location, Minsk, Belarus. A young bride collapsed on her wedding night. Witnesses said her voice changed, deep, male, and furious. She began screaming, "This body is mine. I was cheated of it." The court later determined Dybbuk was the soul of a man who had been promised to her in secret, but died before the marriage and believed she had betrayed him. The spirit used her mouth to accuse her of lying, revealing secrets only the dead man knew. During the exorcism, her body arched unnaturally. Blood flowed from her nose. The Dybbuk shouted in 3 voices, and the ram's horn shattered. The spirit was expelled, but the bride never spoke again. In 1892, the widow of Prague. A grieving widow claimed her dead husband was inside her. At first, it was comforting. Then it became violent. The Dybbuk forced her to destroy religious icons, to injure herself over and over again, to curse God, and to finally attempt murder. During the exorcism, the spirit admitted he had beaten her in life and came back to keep controlling her. When expelled, the widow collapsed, free, but mentally broken. In 1974, the possessed child of Las Vegas. A 10-year-old boy began screaming in ancient Hebrew, a language he had never heard or learned. He scratched symbols into walls at night. Witnesses reported eyes turning black, speaking to invisible figures, threatening his own family. The Dybbuk was identified as a man who had drowned in the Nevada lake after committing incest. He entered the child to avoid divine judgment. Thankfully, the boy survived the exorcism, but his memories were erased, and he never remembered his own name again. Now, how Dybbuks kill? They don't tear bodies apart. They destroy from the inside, driving hosts to suicide, forcing violent acts, feeding on fear and guilt, burning out the nervous system. Some hosts die not from possession, but from their soul being slowly pushed out. The Dybbuk attacks are unlike demons in that they are there to seek revenge, seek unfinished business, seek the darkest of pleasures. But most of all, they are looking for control. They use bodies the way a fugitive uses a stolen car until it crashes, and they need a new one. Redacted case file. Codename Salt Eater. The Dybbuk box is a sealed antique wine cabinet of unknown Eastern European origin, believed to contain a malignant human spirit dating to the late 1700s, often referred to as the Salt Eater. Why is that? Salt is one of the oldest spiritual barriers in Jewish and global folklore. It symbolizes purification, covenant, preservation, protection from spirits. When the box was first moved into containment, agents laid a thick salt ring around it. By morning, the salt was gone. Not scattered, not blown away, not melted, just gone. Security footage shows the crystals slowly darkening, shrinking, dissolving inward toward the cabinet, like something was absorbing them. It has become a daily phenomenon as they replace the ring every morning. The object was donated to the Boston Museum of Antiquities in 2009. Within 6 months, multiple deaths, psychotic episodes, and unexplained fires were reported among museum staff. The museum publicly blamed black mold, stress, electrical faults, unrelated medical emergencies. But those were all false. Within weeks of the Dybbuk box being placed on display, guards and curators reported whispering coming from the case, the glass fogging from the inside, the smell of rotting flowers. Once, Hebrew writing appearing on nearby walls. In many instances of visitors becoming dizzy or nauseous or violently sick. One security guard was found in an exhibit after hours, crying and begging something to stop showing him what he did. Horrendously, he slit his throat with a display placard 2 minutes later. The museum ruled it a mental breakdown. Over the next 4 months, 2 conservators suffered massive heart attacks. One of the night crew threw herself down a marble staircase. A museum intern was found drowned in a dry fountain. And one night guard disappeared completely. Security cameras later showed him standing motionless in front of the box for 7 hours before walking into the darkness behind the exhibit. He was never seen again. The Salt Eater box seems to have a pattern. Survivors report hearing, "You have so much room inside you." Psychics who were brought in secretly described that they could sense a male spirit with extreme rage and a history of murder, a growing hatred toward women, and obsessed with control. They suggested it was not trying to escape the box, it was calling hosts to it. In 2012, a private Kabbalist was brought in. When the box was opened, the room temperature dropped 40 degrees. Museum lights exploded, and the rabbi began speaking in a second voice. The Dybbuk identified itself as one who was strangled for what I did, and I would do it again. With that, the rabbi collapsed, and he never woke up. The box slammed shut on its own. The exorcism was considered a complete failure. After that, the museum closed the exhibit and claimed no supernatural cause was ever found. Every staff member involved signed NDAs. Records were erased. Security footage was stockpiled and destroyed. The building was renovated, and every death that happened inside those walls was quietly listed as accidents or pre-existing conditions or unrelated suicides. Eventually, the box was quietly removed in a black, climate-sealed transport crate at 3:33 a.m. There was no press and no witnesses. The Salt Eater box now resides in Facility Onyx, a paranormal containment wing operated by Project Black Garden. It is stored inside a lead-lined vault, a daily salt ring, a Faraday cage, and a constant stream of prayers broadcast in a loop that never ends. The box has not been physically opened since 2012. But last month, sensors inside the vault recorded rapid temperature fluctuations, unexplained electromagnetic pulses, scratching sounds from inside the box, and even a human heartbeat. The security cameras show the box vibrating slightly at night. A technician monitoring the feed suffered a seizure after whispering, "It knows my name." He died 18 minutes later. A confirmed visual sighting happened on one of the sub-level vault floors. The hallway lights flickered for approximately 4.3 seconds. Security footage shows the Dybbuk box sitting motionless inside the vault until the shadows behind it began to stretch unnaturally across the wall. And the crazy thing is, the shadow does not match the physical attributes of the box. It was much taller, thinner, and appeared to be breathing. Moments later, the shadow detached from the cabinet. It doesn't step away from it, it just peels away. The technician's witness statement reads as follows. "At first, I thought it was smoke, but smoke doesn't stand up. I've never witnessed anything like that." On the security footage, the figure appeared as a vertical distortion in the air, blacker than the surrounding darkness, limbs too long for its torso, fingers splitting at the ends like cracked branches, and what looked like its head was tilted too far to the side. There were no facial features, except two dim white shapes where eyes should be. Not glowing, but reflecting, like something wet inside a skull. The shadow creature did not move toward the witness. It moved toward the camera. When it reached the lens, the screen filled with static. Audio playback later revealed whispering layered under the distortion. In what was said, "There is so much room in you." 1 minute later, the vault door rattled violently. Salt lines at the threshold were found smeared as if dragged through by fingers. But there were no fingerprints, no footprints, only a handprint burned into the steel door from the inside, with 6 elongated marks, too long to be human. The technician was found 11 minutes later in the observation booth. His eyes were still open, unblinking. There was a heartbeat present, but his brain activity had fallen below normal. Before losing consciousness permanently, he whispered one last time and said, "It stepped out, but the box never opened." Current vault footage shows the Dybbuk box completely still, with a faint line of salt circling it. but the shadow that falls upon the floor no longer matches its shape. Now my great uncle Sam, who had seen too much to be considered a religious man, had a final note on this file. The Dybbuk box, or salt eater, is not dormant. It is waiting, and it has had years to learn how we think, how we fear, and how to escape. I don't think there's a way to stop this one. Subject Salt Eater, it is my personal recommendation that codename Salt Eater should be destroyed without prejudice. All right, listeners, or my fellow gardeners, thank you for listening to this one. Now, I don't like to go into personal things beyond the files I'm sharing. I learned in the first season of the show, sharing my personal experiences in current situations was not helping anything and made things worse. But I have my own experience with a Dybbuk box. There's one currently located in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I found myself in front of it, daring myself to see what the fuss has been about. And immediately, when walking into the room where it was being housed, things changed. My demeanor changed. My thought process grew cloudy, and fear overtook me. It was irrational, and I know that now, but it literally made my skin crawl. That's never happened to me personally with anything, with the exception of reading a few of my great uncle's files. And the craziest thing is, while I was in that room with this Dybbuk box, all I could taste was salt. I hope you'll come back next week as we return with our season finale, The Lichen. You have been listening to Project Black Garden, a Monsters and Myths podcast, Season 3, The Lotus Files. I'm your host, Michael, and I want to believe the unbelievable. Remember, monsters are real, and Salt Eater waits patiently.